Well, Roy Orbison's got a line in a song that says, "A diamond is a diamond and a stone is a stone."
The Man in Black, a legend of struggle and soul, secretly believed some bands were worthless. People picture him as a tall, serious icon who sang about prison and pain. But behind that image was a powerful judge of character and music. He demanded truth in every note he heard and had no time for anything less. Let us now dare to name the bands that Johnny Cash believed had absolutely no soul. 1. The Monkees.
A lot of work. It's tough to do.
It was hard. You were always the funny one. I'm waiting for that coffee to kick in and you to take over.
The list of bands that reportedly bothered Johnny Cash begins with a group that was, in many ways, the exact opposite of him. The Monkees were a pop group created specifically for a television show, and they represented everything Cash disliked about the commercial side of the music business. While the Monkees would later earn respect for their own musical talents, Johnny Cash first saw them as a perfect example of style over substance.
Don Kirshner, who used outside session musicians to make the Monkees' first records.
He believed that real music came from life experience, hard work, and honest emotion, not from a television studio's marketing plan. The idea of a pre-packaged band, created by producers to be an instant hit, went against everything he stood for as an artist who had paid his dues on countless small stages and in rough-and-tumble bars. According to a story told by Cash's longtime bass player Marshall Grant, the Man in Black's dislike for the group started the moment their TV show first appeared in 1966. Johnny apparently watched about half of one episode before turning to his friend and delivering a sharp, simple verdict.
He shook my hand, and when he left, he put a 20 in my hand. He says, "Thank you very much."
You meant a lot.
So unknown and anonymous.
Yes,
That
of
is-
course.
This isn't a band, Cash reportedly said. It's a marketing scheme with haircuts. This quick and blunt comment perfectly captures Cash's lifelong suspicion of any musical act that seemed to be driven more by their image than by their music. He saw their matching outfits and funny on-screen antics not as harmless entertainment, but as a distraction from the fact that they hadn't earned their place in the way he and his peers had, through years of honing their craft on the road.
Basically because of A Hard Day's Night, the Beatles,
Sure.
Americans' answer to the idea. So we filmed the show, and
This feeling of frustration only grew stronger as the Monkees became incredibly popular, their records flying off the shelves and dominating the music charts. These were spots on the charts that had previously been held by more traditional artists, including many of Cash's friends and heroes in the country music world. His wife, June Carter Cash, remembered a specific moment during a tour in 1967. Johnny was in a record store and saw a big display of Monkees albums that had replaced the records of several country artists. He allegedly pointed right at the display and said, with clear frustration in his voice, "That right there is everything that's wrong with music. Pretty boys playing make-believe for television, while real musicians can't get shelf space." What bothered him most wasn't just that they were famous. It was that he saw their success as coming at the expense of artists he considered more authentic. The core of the issue for Cash was how far the Monkees' music strayed from the American musical traditions he held sacred, like country, folk, and blues. The legendary producer Jack Clement, who worked with Cash for many years, claimed that Johnny heard their hit song Last Train to Clarksville and had a very specific criticism. Cash supposedly remarked, "They're not just copying the Beatles, they're making a copy of a copy. There's nothing of America left in it." In his mind, their pop sound was a pale imitation of British pop, which was itself an imitation of American rock and roll, but Cash's criticism wasn't reserved just for bands created for television. 2. The Beach Boys.
They have their different points of view, and we've had arguments and stuff, but the overwhelming fact is that we're still here.
It might seem strange to think of any tension between Johnny Cash, the dark and gritty voice of American struggle, and the Beach Boys, the sunny soundtrack of California beaches. But according to people who knew the Man in Black well, he had a real problem with the famous California group. He reportedly disliked their bright and cheerful image and what he saw as their light, shallow song lyrics. For a man like Johnny Cash, music was not just entertainment. It was a powerful tool that should be used to talk about the serious and important parts of human life. He believed a song should tell a true story, explore a deep emotion, or shine a light on the struggles of ordinary people. He saw music as a responsibility, and he felt the Beach Boys were completely ignoring that responsibility. The story of Cash's dislike for the band apparently began on a tour through California back in 1963. His tour manager, Lou Robin, told the story in a documentary years later. Johnny was in a car with his wife, June, when the Beach Boys' classic hit Surfin' USA came on the radio. After listening for a moment, Johnny allegedly turned to June with a look of disbelief on his face. "Listen to that," he reportedly said. "Grown men singing about going to the beach like they're reading from a tourist brochure. Meanwhile, people are starving and fighting wars." This single comment shows the huge gap between his view of the world and the world presented in the Beach Boys songs. For Cash, who often sang about poverty, war, and injustice, a song about surfing felt like a complete waste of time and talent. He simply couldn't understand how anyone could sing about such trivial things when there was so much real suffering in the world.
In a fantasy.
Okay. I would like to thank you very much for coming to Brothers Studios.
This difference in philosophy became even clearer as both Johnny Cash and the Beach Boys were competing for listeners on the radio and for high positions on the music charts. While Johnny was singing powerful songs about life in prison, the pain of addiction, and the search for spiritual redemption, the Beach Boys were celebrating a carefree world of fast cars, pretty girls, and endless summer days.
Janet Dean, I've written several of their newest hits, their latest hits, since Surf City on up, I've written a lot of those.
Cash's longtime drummer, W.S. Holland, claimed that after seeing the group perform on a television show in 1965, Johnny made another sharp comment. He reportedly said, "Those boys haven't lived enough life to have earned the right to anyone's attention. They're selling a fantasy that doesn't exist for most Americans." In Cash's eyes, their music wasn't just simple, it was dishonest. He felt they were selling a perfect sunny dream that was out of reach for the hard-working, everyday people he saw as his true audience.
The basic style that we started with, and so we've learned to just really enjoy what we're doing and do that for the people.
What seemed to irritate Johnny Cash the most was the huge contrast between the band's incredibly polished and beautiful vocal harmonies and what he felt was a total lack of deep, honest emotion behind them. The music producer Brian Ahern once quoted Cash's alleged opinion on the matter, and it was a powerful image. His dislike for light, fun music would turn into pure frustration with the next band on our list. 3. Kiss. The loud, theatrical, and explosive hard rock of the band. Kiss represented a complete and total clash with Johnny Cash's core musical values. The conflict between Cash's simple, honest approach and Kiss's over-the-top stage show created what people close to him described as one of the strongest and most immediate negative reactions he had to any popular band of the 1970s. For Johnny Cash, the song was everything.
Longer than anybody other than the mother and father who gave us life.
The story, the lyrics, and the raw emotion were the sacred heart of the music. Anything that took attention away from that, like costumes or stage antics, was not just a distraction. It was a betrayal of what music was supposed to be. Kiss, with their comic book makeup, fire-breathing, and platform boots, was the ultimate distraction in his eyes. According to his son, John Carter Cash, his father's first time seeing Kiss was during a television performance in 1975. The reaction was instant and harsh. Dad watched them for about 30 seconds, his son remembered in a family memoir, before allegedly turning away in disgust and saying, "This isn't music. It's a damned Halloween party with amplifiers." This immediate dismissal shows just how much Cash valued musical substance over visual spectacle. He had spent his entire life on stage wearing a simple black suit, believing that the power of his songs was all he needed to connect with his audience.
I'm gonna give it all to you. Oh yeah, I know what it means. I know exactly what you mean. In the darkness.
The idea that a band needed to wear costumes and use circus tricks to entertain people was, to him, a sign of deep artistic weakness. The difference in their philosophies couldn't have been wider. Johnny Cash built his legendary career on singing songs that were often about his own life. He sang about his struggles, his beliefs, and the stories of the people he met. His music was a form of autobiography, a way of sharing his own truth with the world. Kiss, on the other hand, built their career on creating elaborate characters.
With all due respect, admiration, and like Keith Richards, or name your favorite.
They were the Demon, the Star Child, the Spaceman, and the Catman. They prioritized visual shock value and creating a larger-than-life spectacle. Cash's producer, Jack Clement, claimed that after seeing a picture of Kiss's wild stage show in a music magazine, Cash made a cutting remark. "When you need to breathe fire and wear makeup to get people's attention," Cash supposedly said, "you've already admitted you don't have anything worth saying." He saw all the theatrics as a giant cover-up for a lack of meaningful songs. What reportedly frustrated Cash the most was the fact that Kiss was having enormous commercial success during a time when many of the traditional country artists he admired were struggling to even get their songs played on the radio. His wife, June Carter Cash, noted that during one of their tours in the mid-1970s, Johnny complained about this very thing. But it wasn't just the bands with crazy costumes that drew his criticism. For Fleetwood Mac,
when I was in another band called Chicken Shack, when Fleetwood Mac first formed, it was a blues band, and it was...
The tension between a traditionalist like Johnny Cash and a super popular 1970s rock band like Fleetwood Mac shows a fascinating clash of values. It was a conflict between Cash's down-to-earth country roots and what he saw as the excessive and self-absorbed lifestyle of California rock royalty. According to people in Johnny's inner circle, he viewed the band, especially during the time of their massively successful album Rumors, as a symbol of everything that was wrong with the music industry's decadence.
That was what I was told by Irving, that she gave them an ultimatum: either Lindsay goes or I go.
He saw a group of wealthy, famous people who seemed to be more interested in their own personal drama than in connecting with the lives of ordinary Americans, and that was something he simply could not respect. Johnny Cash's first real exposure to Fleetwood Mac reportedly happened in 1977, right when the band was experiencing their huge commercial breakthrough.
When I was a junior in high school up in Northern California, she transferred into my high school as a senior.
His daughter, the successful musician Roseanne Cash, has recalled in interviews that her father's reaction to hearing their hit song Dreams on the radio was not a positive one. After listening for a bit, her dad allegedly turned down the volume and said, "So, this is what happens when rich hippies make music about their own divorce dramas, while the rest of the country struggles to pay bills." This sharp criticism perfectly reflects Cash's populist point of view. He believed that music had a duty to be relevant to the lives of working-class people.
Went beyond the music itself. That's not to take anything away from the musical accomplishment.
He felt that songs should offer comfort, tell a shared story, or speak truth to power, not just air the dirty laundry of millionaires. The divide between Cash and Fleetwood Mac was about their lifestyles just as much as it was about their music. By this point in his life, Johnny Cash had fought his own long and difficult battles with substance use. He had embraced sobriety and a deep sense of spirituality. He had faced his demons and had come out the other side with a new appreciation for a clean and honest life. In contrast, Fleetwood Mac's story during the making of Rumors was famous for its wild parties and romantic entanglements. To Cash, this represented a kind of Hollywood excess that he now found distasteful. The producer Brian Ahern claimed that Cash once turned down an invitation to a big industry party where the band was going to be. Cash reportedly explained his decision by saying, "I battled my demons in private, and sang about the struggle honestly. They're parading their weaknesses like achievements and selling millions for it.
Well, they could be. I think it comes down to the fact that Fleetwood Mac would not go on without Chris and me.
What supposedly bothered Johnny Cash the most about the band was what he saw as their emotional self-indulgence. He had built his entire career on being a champion for the underdog. He wrote powerful songs about prisoners, poor farmers, Native Americans, and other forgotten voices in society. He used his platform to look outward, to tell the stories of others. He saw Fleetwood Mac, on the other hand, as a band that only looked inward. Even bands from his own beloved South were not safe from his judgment. 5. Leonard Skynerd.
Hey guys, we got trouble. We're gonna make an emergency landing in a field, so get ready.
The strong disagreement between Johnny Cash and the Southern rock pioneers. Leonard Skynerd is one of the most interesting and complicated conflicts in music history. On the surface, you might think they would have a lot in common. Both Cash and the members of Leonard Skynerd had deep Southern roots and wrote songs that often appealed to working-class people. However, according to those who were close to Johnny Cash, he viewed the band with a special kind of disappointment.
And I should let him explain it.
Well, his name was Leonard Skynerd.
He specifically disliked their use of Confederate imagery and what he saw as their simplistic, commercialized version of what it meant to be from the South. For Cash, the South was a place of deep complexity, full of both beauty and pain, and he felt Skynerd was ignoring the difficult parts of its story. According to Patrick Carr, who helped Johnny Cash write his autobiography, Cash's frustration with the band became clear after he first heard their famous anthem, Sweet Home Alabama, in 1974.
Dixie flag around his microphone for Alabama, and we have a whole flag over the piano.
Johnny allegedly listened to the song and then explained his problem with it to Carr. They're selling a cartoon version of the South that ignores all its complexity and pain. Carr revealed that Cash had told him. This criticism comes from a very personal place for Cash. He had a very nuanced and evolving relationship with his own Southern heritage. While he was proud of where he came from, he also spent much of his career speaking out against injustice.
And Ronnie's saying was, hell, Neil, you're from Canada. What the hell you know about Alabama? A lot of people think Skynyrd hates Neil Young.
And fighting for the rights of Native Americans and other marginalized groups. He understood the dark side of Southern history and refused to ignore it. He felt that Leonard Skynerd's song was painting a picture of the South that was too simple and too clean, letting people off the hook from thinking about its complicated past. This philosophical divide grew even deeper when it came to the band's frequent use of the Confederate flag in their concerts and on their album covers. This was a symbol that Johnny Cash had very purposefully and carefully avoided throughout his entire career. He knew that for millions of people, especially African Americans, that flag represented a history of slavery, pain, and division. Cash's longtime drummer, W.S. Holland, claimed that after seeing a picture of Leonard Skynerd's stage show with the giant flag behind them, Cash made a powerful comment. They're wrapping themselves in a flag that represents pain and division for half the country. Cash reportedly said, "That's not rebellion. That's just being willfully ignorant." He didn't see their use of the flag as a brave or rebellious act. He saw it as a thoughtless and hurtful one. But there was one band whose success seemed to bother him more than any other. 6. The Eagles.
And if we had adopted a little bit of his suggestion, I think, along the way, we would have all been in better health.
At the very top of the list of bands that reportedly drew Johnny Cash's most consistent and sharpest criticism sits the Eagles. This mega-successful band, with their polished and smooth country rock sound, seemed to represent everything the Man in Black believed was fake and inauthentic about the way country music was being commercialized in the 1970s.
All I want to see is five guys happy playing together, you know, and that's what makes the music.
For Johnny Cash, country music was more than just a style. It was the honest, heartfelt music of rural America. It was born from struggle, hard work, and real life. He saw the Eagles as outsiders who were borrowing the sounds of country music without understanding or respecting its soul and it was something he could not forgive. According to Johnny's longtime manager, Lou Robin, this strong feeling of dislike started as soon as the Eagles began to emerge as the leaders of the new California country rock scene in the early 1970s. Robin claimed in his memoir that Johnny heard one of their first big hits, Peaceful Easy Feeling, and had an immediate and blunt reaction. "That's not country music," Johnny allegedly told him. "That's what happens when rock musicians think wearing a bolo tie makes them understand rural America."
When AI knows how to destroy a hotel room.
This cutting remark shows how protective Cash was of the musical traditions he came from. He saw the Eagles' sound not as a tribute to country music, but as a shallow imitation created by people who hadn't lived the life. He felt they were treating country music like a costume you could put on, rather than something that had to be earned through authentic experience. This fundamental disagreement only grew deeper as the Eagles became one of the biggest-selling bands of all time. Their massive success happened during a period when many of the traditional country artists that Cash knew and respected were finding it harder and harder to get mainstream recognition or radio airplay. His wife, June Carter Cash, recalled just how frustrated her husband was during this time.
You know, I don't have any regrets about the way I felt about it at the time. I think that's a mistake to look back and...
John reportedly said to her, "They're skimming the surface of country music, taking its sounds, but leaving behind all its heart and soul. And they're making millions doing it." He saw their success as a kind of theft. He believed they were taking the most accessible and commercial elements of the country sound, the harmonies, the acoustic guitars, while ignoring the grit, the pain, and the storytelling that he considered to be the true essence of the genre. Johnny Cash's strong opinions show a man who cared deeply about musical truth. He championed the honest and the real, and had little time for anything else. What do you think of his list? Like this video and subscribe for more.